Okay. All right. And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the show. We are going to talk about business today, which is not all that out of the ordinary from what we normally talk about. But we want to talk about reasons and motivations. Why do you want to be in business? Why do you want to own a truck? Why do you want to become an owner operator? What's your motivation? Um, I had my motivations when I got started. I'm sure Larry had his. Um, so we'll talk about that. And Larry says he has a story he wants to tell me that he's been teasing all week. So I'm waiting for that. So I'm about to just give him the floor and let him go. Larry?
Well, we talked about this probably in some of the early episodes about around me, but I ran into another driver this week. I was wearing a Landstar shirt, and he saw that, and he wanted to strike up a conversation. And then on Facebook, on a pretty regular basis, you see a lot of people asking for advice about where to lease a truck, what truck they should go buy, and it's obvious that they are trying to enter into the world of owner operator. Um, and I just thought we might take a step back here and relook at this and talk about the why. Um, because I think that, and I also wanted to take the opportunity to contrast the way that most people go about doing this, which is completely 180 degrees different than how we would preach or teach to do it. So I wanted to re-hit that because what we do is pretty counterintuitive. We even call ourselves lunatics because we're so away from the norm. But I just wanted to hit that again and illustrate the difference in between the two. So let me go back about a week or so. I was in a customer's office, and again, I happened to be wearing a Landstar shirt that day, by the way, which was white. Um, and I'll tell you the significance of that later. um, so this older gentleman said, "You work for Landstar, do you?" I said, "Well, I guess if you want to say it that way." Because I hate when people say that because I don't really work for Landstar. Landstar is a business. I'm a business. We just happen to choose to do business together. But that's usually deeper than most drivers want to comprehend. But
Right.
so I acknowledge the fact that I was associated with Landstar. And so here's the next thing out of his mouth that I couldn't. I let the do you work for Landstar thing sort of go. I couldn't let this one go. He said, "So you let them take 35% of your money." And I hesitated because I really didn't feel like talking to this guy honestly, but I just couldn't let that one go. And I said no, that's not how it works at all. I said I freely with all um, with all uh, free will split the money with them 65-35, but there are things I get in return for that 35%. He goes, "Well, like what?" And I started itemizing all the things that they get. And so he comes out with, "Well, I was with Landstar for a couple of years. It's been a few years ago, 2014, 15, 16, long in there." And I'm thinking, yeah, I was at Landstar in 2014, 15, 16. Those are pretty tough times, as I recall. And so he went on to tell me about his experience at Landstar. Of course, his description of it and mine were completely different because he worked for Landstar, and his best paycheck he got while he was working there was $700. He said. Of course, you and I both know we don't get paychecks from Landstar. So
No.
all this was from an employee slash victim mentality. The
Hmm.
entire, the entire uh, description was completely wrong. Which explained exactly what his problem was.
And if
Okay.
I'm being honest right now, I'm basically just on that alone. I'm wondering if he actually had a truck leased to Landstar. But you know,
Well, I think he did because, he knew it when I engaged him. He knew enough about it. And let me go on because
Okay.
you'll now realize he did. Okay.
Okay.
So so I started asking him. I said, "Well, tell me what you know." And so he had been leasing a truck from some central refrigerated something something something, and so it was a reefer. Um, and so he had was 2 years into a 3-year lease, and so he didn't like his life. Uh, like a lot of company drivers, he all he heard was at Landstar you have all the freedom, you choose your loads, you make these big, this big money, blah 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 blah, all the talking points that you hear about people want to come to Landstar. Um, and he, in his mind, he was going to work for Landstar, but Landstar was going to be a different company than anything else he'd ever worked for. Um, and so I said, okay, so how did you get out of your lease? He said, well, I went and borrowed the money to pay my lease off. He said, so my truck payment after paying my lease off was the same as it was when I was leasing, which was $785 a week. And he brought his truck to Landstar. I said, so you never ever had any experience with load boards, load selection. You always had a dispatcher, right? Right. I said, so let me guess, when you got to Landstar, you were having to pick your own loads, and that was wasn't easy for you. He goes, no. He said, I couldn't, I just could not, work the load board and drive the truck. He said, so I mean, he said, I tried to find the best paying loads I can get. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he lived in Florida. He said, I would get loads to California. I'm like, okay, so you went for the big money loads. He said, yeah, I had to because I couldn't work that load board every day. I had to get a load that I could stay on for 4 or 5 days. And then when I got where I was going, I'd try to find another load, typical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, so, okay, so you were attracted by the total dollar amount of the load, regardless of how long it took you to just to deliver that load. He said, "Oh yeah." He said, I went for the big money." So I had to have the big money because I had this truck payment and I had my household, you know, bills and all that. He said I had to have the big money. And so I let him talk, and so what he was doing was he was picking a coast to coast load, and then he would try to find the load back, stumble around. He'd end up spending about 2 weeks, making what we would do in a week,
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that he was going for a five, six, seven, $8,000 load, and then he'd have to stumble back, which took him another week, So I can see where he would have a problem. His truck was a 2014. Um, I think I don't forget what brand it was. That really didn't matter. But the point, it was a DPF truck. And sure enough, about a year or two into his probably wasn't a year or two, probably was a year into his time at Landstar, the DPF went bad, and it was going to cost $13,000 to fix it, which he didn't have. So get this. So after he'd leased the truck for 2 years, borrowed money to pay the truck off. He didn't have the $13,000 to fix it, and he was frustrated with the money he was making at Landstar on his paycheck quote. He turned the truck in, lost everything he put into it, bankrupted him, ruined his credit. So now he's back as a company driver, okay? And now he sees me walking with a Landstar, and he wants to tell me that they took 35% of my money. So then I proceeded to tell him all. Get his name, but I said, let me tell you a different way that this story could have turned out. And I said, look, you know, you didn't have to go, you didn't have to go in debt to buy that. You should have just walked away from that lease, you know, and went and got yourself a $15,000 truck, you know,
Mm-hmm.
brought it. If you're going to come to Landstar, brought that to Landstar, um, you, you instead of trying to find one big load, you should have been looking for a small load every day. I went into great detail with all this. And anyway, I pointed out how this could have worked out a lot differently. And he goes, "Wow, man, I never thought about that." He said,
Mm-hmm.
"I don't know anybody that would have done it that way." He said, "Everybody that I knew that went to Landstar that influenced me all did it the way I did." I said, "How many of them are still there?" He goes, "None of them." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'm still here, and I've got a fleet of 5 trucks. I've got drivers. The least the worst income driver I have is 75 grand a year. You know. Now I don't know what $700 a week adds up to. That's about what, $35,000. So I've got a driver making twice that with no risk, no responsibility. So his paycheck at Landstar is $1,400 a week. Okay, he really is a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that this guy is normal. I mean, how many times do we run across this same thing where somebody comes? I mean, how many times we've been to orientation with a driver and you ask around the room, and half the people in the room just leased a truck from Lone Mountain or somewhere, and they brought it to Landstar. It's their first attempt at being an owner operator. They've got a truck they just went and leased and guarantee you don't have any idea whether it's the correct application for what they're trying to do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're at a place where they've never ever dealt with brokers, never ever selected loads, never been in business before. And now they're thrown into the fire basically to either sink or swim. And and many of them sink because of that. Yeah. So here's what I wanted to basically review, and let's just talk about that decision. The reason that he came to Landstar was because he had heard and he had buddies, that had come to Landstar, and let's just say this: some people are going to succeed at Landstar wildly, and some people are going to fail, and a lot of that is just going to be their inherent intuition, their business acumen, maybe some experience in other lines, in other business, and other parts of their life, whatever. They adapt to it more quickly than others. Others have to have maybe a little help along the way. Maybe should have come to Landstar and worked for a BCO for a while, learn the ropes. But anyway, this guy had some people that came here, and I guess at early on had some success. Um, but so he made the decision to do this, to escape what a lot of company drivers are trying to escape, and that is they want their own truck, they want a new truck, they don't want a piece of shit truck, they want one that's that's nice and comfortable and has all the luxuries, so that's why they buy a newer truck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they think because it's sort of common sense. If you buy a newer truck, you'll have less breakdowns. You'll have less money that you have to pay out for maintenance. Um, that's what they're thinking. Okay, um, and these leasing companies and trucking companies will let them do it. It's not like they had to make a choice when they decided to become an owner operator or a lease operator at their company. The company's the one that says we're going to give you a new truck. That's not necessarily a choice of drive. They didn't say, let's go on the lot and you can look at this 2007 or you can look at this 2016. You choose the one. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on the lot and you pick you out a new truck, or pick you out one that 3 other people have attempted to lease and it's not. So, so they do it because they can. Our industry allows people with no business background, no credit, no previous experience to go in debt $150,000 on a new truck,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there's no chance, zero chance that driver's going to succeed in that situation. So that's the conspiracy theory part of this. But so to review, I guess to get to my point, you know, let's rethink the why. Why would you want to leave the security of of a regular job with a paycheck every week, with with all the decisions being made for you, um, to jump into a situation where now you're responsible for all that, including the financial responsibility of it. So it would be a pretty driving desire, I would think, to make you want to do that. You'd have to be pretty frustrated. And I get that because I was there. You've heard the story where I was stuck in Kansas City for a weekend and told my dispatcher that, I simply was not going to do it. I gave him an alternative and, I was not. So I understand that. But I had a lot of business experience. To me, it wasn't any issue at all. But what we have to question is if you have no business experience and you're pissed off at your dispatcher, the thing you don't want to do to correct that situation is jump into business for yourself just as a knee-jerk reaction to you being pissed off over a load canceling or you not getting home or whatever. That might give you the why, but you owe it to yourself to, at that point in time, start seeking out the education, the training, the background, all the things you need. You need to develop the skill sets it's going to take for you to take that plunge and now be successful at so that you can have that revenge motive for that company and that dispatcher and not be having to drag your ass back to them in a couple of months with your tail between your legs going, oh, I was wrong. Please take me back. So let's just talk about the things that the skill sets that and again, let's go back to the normal, way of doing things. Here's a normal company driver deciding to become an owner operator. Okay. He has zero business experience, more than likely. Never owned a business, never had anything to do with running a business, probably never was a manager anywhere. Had no business education, no business training, didn't go to school, doesn't have a master's degree in business administration, doesn't have any accounting or bookkeeping system or background in accounting or bookkeeping. Probably no credit or bad credit. No cash, no savings account. No experience in buying or speccing trucks. Take the truck that's green, that's a 10-speed, because you don't want to drive a 13-speed. It's got a Mercedes engine. Zero experience at buying and speccing a truck. Although that's the tool. The major decision in what you're getting ready to do. Is that truck geared with 390s or 355s?
Mm-hmm.
Is that truck going to get you 7.5 miles a gallon or 4.5 miles a gallon? That didn't even enter into the decision of which truck to pick out on the lot out there. Didn't even begin to enter. No negotiating experience, other than buying a used car off the lot where it was a win-lose negotiating outcome. Never had an experience with a win-win negotiating experience where you have to negotiate with that person and do business with them again after that transaction. No experience working with agents or brokers. No experience working with a load board. No experience strategizing load selection. Let's take the one that pays $8,000 and goes to Alaska. And it's going to take 14 days to get there and back. Instead of taking a load that pays $1,500 every day for those 14 days that you had it. Zero experience doing that. So, what do? They either lease a truck from the carrier that they drive for. And I've said this before. There are very few things in this world that you can say never and there be zero exceptions for. This is the only one that I can positively say. Never, ever, under any circumstances, ever lease a truck from the carrier that you're going to get freight from. Never, ever do that. And the reason why is simple. It's a marriage you cannot get a divorce from. You cannot, that situation will never have a good ending because if you leave, they keep the truck. I heard a guy this week He had one or two payments left on his lease. His company was bought out by another company. The other company did not want to have lease trucks. They canceled all the leases. He lost every penny he put into that truck. They took the truck back with two payments to go.
Mm.
Perfectly legal inside the lease. Perfectly legal. Either party can cancel with 30 days notice. So it's a walk away for the driver, which is
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people use. Well, I'm going to do this because it's a walk away. What's a walk away for them too? What if you did happen to succeed and you're getting ready to get the title and they go, well, we're going to cancel it. We're not going to do it. Perfectly in their right. And you say, well, I've worked this company for years. I know they wouldn't do that. They're good people. I know them. I've been with them for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
640 companies went out of business this year already. Okay? What makes you think that one's not going to either go out of business or get bought by a bigger company? Knight Swift's going to come buy them, absorb them. And now the big corporate office says, we don't want these leases. Cancel. Or they go lease a truck or buy it from a finance company and they finance it. But they finance it to the tune of $700, $800, $900 a week. And then now the guy, he's got his new shiny truck. He's excited, he's kind of got an erection for this thing, And then Christmas rolls around, and guess what? He can't take off the week to go home to Christmas because if he did, he'd be $1,000 upside down when he comes back out. So guess what? He doesn't go home. This same guy I talked about, he lost his wife and his family for that very reason. He didn't go home the entire time he worked at Landstar in that truck because he couldn't afford to take off and go to Florida and get off freight and lose a week. He would never have made his truck payment. So he lost his wife and his family because of this truck. And now he lost the truck and his credit and his financial future for the next few years. All because he wanted to be an owner-operator. Shoot me now and get it over with. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So then they do this. They bought too much truck. They bought the truck with the wrong application. The weekly payment is way too high. So that he'll save any money for maintenance or reserve. Their home time goes to zero because they can't take off because they can't afford to. They can't find loads, or they pick the wrong loads. They can't work the load board. They've never worked with agents before. They negotiate poorly. If they happen to be in a situation where they're a truly owner-operator, they can't wait to get paid for 90 days, so they factor, which is a payday loan, 840% interest when you work it out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay their quarterly taxes because they've never done it before, and they don't understand that the IRS is very, very efficient at collecting money. So when they don't have any money, the first thing they do is let the IRS go. So now they're behind with the government. And they have the first breakdown. They've got a $13,000 DPF bill that they can't pay for. So now all of this dream, everything that they've did, all these bad decisions, and now they lose the truck. They give up the truck. They walk away, bankrupt, in financial ruin, and the truck's repossessed. And now they're back as a company driver, and they see a guy walk in the door with a Landstar shirt on, and all they want to do is talk about how Landstar takes 35% of their money. End of story.
Yep. And I lived a lot of that,
Chris, there are thousands of drivers every day that are doing this. Thousands.
And the lease companies, they get paid first. I mean, it doesn't really matter. If you're leasing the truck from the carrier, they are going to get paid. They set it up that way with good reason.
Sure.
Um, so they're not. It doesn't matter if they buy a truck, they acquire an asset, and in that 400,000 or 500,000 miles that they have possession of that asset. It don't matter if 30 different people leased it because they're getting paid. It just
Well, better than that, those people are also taking care of the maintenance. It is a sweet deal for a trucking company to lease trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you say, they now have an asset that they have zero responsibility for. Okay, they don't. There's no company. There's no benefits to that driver now. They don't have any HR cost for that driver. Okay, they don't have any maintenance costs because the maintenance is on you. Okay, whatever money you make, if they want to talk about Landstar taking their 35%, that company takes their money too. Okay,
Oh God.
believe me. Okay, so it is a no lose situation. And if you fail, they just put it on the lot, and the next sucker that comes through orientation, they walk out there and walk him in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a teaser mayor. And they just wait for him to get aroused by walking by the grill. Okay, or in your case, the long hood.
Mm-hmm.
And so they lease it all over again. I mean, there are companies making more money off leasing trucks than they are hauling freight. Now might be an advantage of that. AB5 might not apply to them. They're not in the freight business. They're in the leasing business.
Yeah.
Maybe independent contractors can work for them. But you're right. It is the only person that's a bad deal for is the lease purchase driver who looks at a 40 to 50 to 60 page lease contract and signs it without reading a freaking word of it,
Mm-hmm.
or doesn't understand the words and won't go pay $400 for a lawyer to read it to him. I guarantee you, if you have somebody read it to you and explain it to you, and you sign it, you deserve everything you get. But most people would run.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would not do that. Unless they're so excited about having the prospect of having this new truck that they completely, and guys are like that. I mean, you've talked about the $70,000 pickup truck before. Who in their right mind does that? Who goes about a $70,000 pickup truck? It's because they want it and they can, and somebody will finance it for them.
Mm-hmm.
If they had to write the check, they can never do it. Okay, so
Right.
our society allows this shit to happen. Okay, but that doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right at all. Um, so anyway, you know how I feel about this. I would do everything about this exactly backwards. Okay, everything about this I would do backwards. If you're going to be an owner operator, get the education. Listen, truck drivers. I've heard my buddy Kevin Rutherford say this over and over again. Truck drivers ought to be the smartest sons of bitches in the world. Okay, they have 11 hours every day to do nothing but listen to audiobooks, and
Right.
I bet you less than 1% of them do it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so don't tell me how you don't have time to get an education. You can get yourself an Audible account and get yourself a Bluetooth radio in your truck. You know,
You're
and
welcome.
and sit there and listen to audiobooks all day long, 11 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you can educate yourself on how to do on all these things we just talked about. Those can be fixed. Okay, or but better idea is go to work for somebody as an employee that's willing to teach you all this stuff. I know a company that'll do that for you. They'll pay you 80 grand to come work at Landstar driving their trucks, and they'll teach you how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I know them. I know a couple of very good guys. So this can all be changed. Okay, and then this while you're at it, maybe listen to a little bit of Dave Ramsey and understand how you don't buy stuff you can't afford.
Yeah.
So instead of leasing this new truck, stay working for your company, save up a few $1,000s. Let's go buy a truck and write a check for it. Okay? Believe me, you can go spend 15 grand for a truck and another 10 on it and put it on the road and that truck will make $200,000 or $300,000 this year. Believe
Mm-hmm.
me,
Yeah.
I can show it to you. I can prove it to you. Okay?
Well, I think so. Let's go to the fundamentals here, because that's in my mind as you're talking, you're telling this story that I've lived. Dave Ramsey has that great line: "Broke, desperate, and stupid are three brothers that hang out together." Okay,
Yeah.
so using my own story, if I go back to 2010, and I knew there was more, right? At the very fundamental level, I knew that there was more the industry had to offer me than a $700 a week paycheck hauling for big lots. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I knew at least that I had a work ethic, you know, and I had listened to Kevin and I had listened to Dave, and I thought, well, I need an opportunity, you know, but I still had that broken desperate. You know, I wasn't really stupid, but I did have quite a bit of broken desperate because I'm thinking, well, I make $700 a week, you know, and I got two kids, and after I pay the bills, there's no money left at the end of the month. So me saving up for a truck is not happening. Uh, and I remember having this conversation with myself and my friends and my wife of of saying, well, uh, I don't love driving a truck. I don't. I mean, I love driving a truck. I mean, but I don't love everything that comes with it. I don't love the being gone. I don't love all the negative things about the industry. But this is the industry that I know. So rather than try to learn something new and go out into business, I'm gonna do it in the industry that I've been in for whatever at the time, 15 years. So, but what I see so much, and I see it in these Facebook groups now, I see it in other social media, I see it in articles that I read. This absolute black hole that is the lack of a fundamental understanding of an economics and business. And for whatever reason, we've been taught to believe that being the CEO of $1 billion company is easy. Well, anybody can do that. You know, I could do that. The only reason I'm not the CEO is because insert lame ass excuse here. And so, you know, that guy's just playing golf and making all that money, and you know, anybody can do that. So, because of this lack of understanding of basic economics, history, and finance, they think, well, anybody can be the CEO, anybody can be the president, anybody can be this, that, or the other. So I'm just going to go buy a truck and everything's going to work out. You know, when I went to ATS, I had that kind of thing in the back of my head. Is like, well, Kevin Rufford would cuss me out right now, but this is all I have available to me. And so I went up there, and it was interesting because they had this list of trucks on a piece of paper, and there was some random draw, and I think my name ended up number 3 or number 4. And on this list, I saw a 2007 Freightliner. But of course, everybody else, they wanted the brand new trucks. They wanted to take the plastic off the seats. And so the first 3 guys in front of me, they walked outside and went straight to the brand new at that time 2011 model Freightliners. And I thought, no, I don't. So the 2007 that I wanted wasn't even in the state. I signed up for it sight unseen. I didn't see it until after I'd signed the paperwork. But I knew that I didn't want an '09, a 10, or 11. You know, I was smart enough to know that. And so, you know, it was everything that you said. It was expensive. It was difficult. I did get the holidays home because the kind of freight that we did, which was really high dollar, and that's the only thing that saved me. I mean, if I wouldn't have had that high dollar freight available to me, and had I not worked and basically networked with the dispatch people to give me the best loads, and I did get the best loads, I never made it. But it was so lucrative on the revenue side, probably equal to what we do now. We just ran a lot less miles, you know, because it was just specialized van stuff. But uh, when I would take 2 weeks off at Christmas. I would stay out 6 to 8 weeks. I'd come home a few days, go back out 6 to 8 weeks, and then uh this was with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old at home. You know, and but when I would go back to work that first week, I was $1,800 in the hole after being off for 2 weeks. And I'd spend the month of January getting back to zero, and then you know. But we have to address the fundamental problem that really, in my estimation, really has nothing to do with trucking. It's a fundamental lack of basic education about history, economics, and finance, because that's non-existent in the state schools. They just don't teach it. And uh, I made a little note here. We have a pronoun problem in this country, and I'm not talking about the preferred gender pronouns. Everybody likes to get worked up about. We like to throw around these pronouns of we and our and all of these plural pronouns.
Third person.
Yeah. It's a big, 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 big problem. I saw a video just this afternoon of Elizabeth Warren, that lady that's running for president, and all I saw, I mean, it was 5 seconds long, but she's in some room and she's pointing her finger at somebody, and she says, "You moved your goods on the roads we all paid for." And I'm thinking, well, hell yeah, I paid for them. Paid for them with fuel taxes. How many fuel taxes have you paid, Liz? You know, um,
Her point being that you couldn't have made it without
oh yeah, oh
the
yeah,
government's assistance. The
right,
government gave you the roads that you made that money on. Therefore, you should give most of it back.
yeah, and
You didn't build. I think a famous president made a statement. You didn't build that.
yeah, yeah. I had a field day with him too.
Yeah.
Um, the my bless my mom, she's just precious. But there was something that she did when I was a teenager. They paid for my car insurance. Okay. Now, if I had it to do over again, I'd have paid for my own insurance. I'd have learned something out. But anyway, I had a car and they paid the insurance. Okay. So they had given me the car and they paid the insurance. And it wasn't much of a car. It was a 1988 Dodge Colt. But yet it was still a car. They gave it to me. But I noticed something, that the fact that I was given the car and the fact that they paid the insurance opened up this opportunity for whenever mom smelled cigarette smoke on me, or I did something that she didn't like. Well, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have that car insurance. It was this, it was this little guilt trip thing, you know? Um, and I learned pretty quick, I'm like, well, you know what? If I just paid for my own damn insurance, she couldn't tell me what to do.
Listen to her guilt trip. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. She was a travel agent for guilt trips. Uh, and I just, I look at, a matter of fact, I saw a post today in a Landstar group. I don't know what this guy's done in there, but he was complaining. I'm guessing he must have left Landstar and went and got a company job. And he took a job with Schneider on a dedicated account, said it paid $68,000. And
They set him over the holidays.
you saw that.
Yeah, they sat him during Thanksgiving.
And so I guess he quit.
He quit.
And I'm thinking, how 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 exactly did you not see that coming? I mean, if it was Schneider and it was dedicated, it was probably automotive somehow. It was probably some customer that shuts down. Um, but I guarantee you, I could go find that guy's name and probably find every post he's ever made in this group. And I guarantee you, if I did find that he used to be leased to Landstar, we would find his laundry list of complaints. All the agents screwed me here, and this agent screwed me there, and corporate won't do this, and corporate won't do that, and um,
But now, let me ask you a question. Do you know what day Thanksgiving is next year?
Do I? No, it's on
Yeah.
Thursday. I
Well,
don't.
but I mean, it's not a secret, right? You could look it up, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know what day Christmas is next year, okay?
It's the 25th of
I got a,
December.
I got a, I got a news flash for you.
Yeah.
Freight's not going to run those 2 days next year,
Yeah.
okay? Go ahead and figure that out right now so that you're not sitting over Thanksgiving, dumbass, okay? So, but that's Snyder's fault, okay?
Right.
They
Right.
set him during, you know, well, you know what I would say about that.
It's so unfortunate because this stuff is not, it's not calculus. It's not, literally not rocket science. It's not complicated.
No, it's common sense. It's freaking common sense. I saw a notice.
Common sense is a superpower.
I saw a
Okay.
big news story today. Public schools in Kentucky are going to start an adulting class in high school. You know what they're going to teach?
Uh,
Cooking and how to change a tire and how to balance your check. An adulting class. When did we have to teach people how to become adults?
when we stop teaching them how to become
This
adults.
this guy needed an adulting class. Guess what? Thanksgiving is a holiday. People stay home that day, and their warehouses aren't open. You know, newsflash. I
Yeah.
did. Who knew? I mean, who would have known that? You know. But
And
here's
I
the
don't,
thing. I went. Listen. He went back to Schneider because he was tired of having to be accountable to himself. Okay. Now he can go to Schneider, and now it's their fault because they didn't see Thanksgiving coming, and they didn't get him home, or they parked him, so whatever. But
yeah.
see, now he can transfer, he can deflect accountability to someone besides himself. Because when you're at Landstar and you get in that situation, you got nobody to blame but you. Okay?
Hmm.
I've said over and over again, the best thing about Landstar is freedom. The worst thing about Landstar is freedom because you have the freedom now to become an idiot. And
Yeah.
a lot of people take that option, you know.
Well, like you said, when you told that story about being stuck in Kansas City, uh, I can't think of a specific example, but I know there were times in my time as a company driver where you're this tiny little pebble in this giant organization that something would happen. I was supposed to be home or I was supposed to be headed home or and I'd raise my hand. Hey guys,
Don't forget me.
hey,
Here I am.
over here, you know, and, but even in, oh, the company made me do this and they made me drive unsafe. And I said, I never encounter. I mean, I've had people say, and it's always some night dispatch guy, which is some college student that, another ass from Holy Ground, would answer the phone if I had a problem. Well, that load's got to be there because that's what they're trained to say. They legally can't say, well, you have to drive it anyway. They can't
Right.
say that, but they can say, well, that load has to be there.
And they don't have the authority to make to solve any problems. They only
Right.
have authority to follow the script. You
Right.
know.
And so I say, well, hey, brother, uh, it ain't gonna get there before I do unless I go through the gate backwards. So have a Coke and a smile. And I was never fired for that. I got fired a couple of times with good cause, but I was never fired because I was tired. I was never fired because I was sick. I was fired because I acted like an idiot, and deserved to be fired. Um, but if you when you lack that basic education and you don't understand history, you don't understand economics, and you don't understand finance, that breeds this lack of basic confidence in yourself and in your surroundings, and say, well, you know what, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that thing, whatever that is. No, I'm not going to do that. And if you try to make me do that, I'm just going to go find another job. I'll have one tomorrow. Have a nice day. But people are they you're raised, and it's so much worse now than it was when I was a kid. Everybody's raised with this desperation. I saw, I don't remember what I saw, but I told this story the other day because I was in the World Cup soccer thing. I don't know what month it happens in, but they have the big World FIA big soccer worldwide tournament, and I'm in like an Arby's one day, And there's big screens. One's got Weather Channel, one's got, I think, Fox News. And it was coming up to the big championship, wherever it was going to be, somewhere in the world. And Fox News had superimposed a mushroom cloud over this stadium where this soccer thing was going to happen. The sound was off. I just happened to turn my head and look, and I could tell it was Fox News because I saw the red and the blue. I knew it was them. And I saw this mushroom cloud superimposed over this thing, and I laughed out loud. And the guy behind me had seen it. And he's like, "Well, I don't know what the hell you think's so damn funny." I said, "Here's what I tell you. I tell you exactly why I think that's hilarious. The fact that they can get away with that they can put up such blatant horseshit propaganda, and y'all don't blink an eye. That's what I think is hilarious, because you're so saturated with fear constantly. Somebody's coming to get your job. Somebody's going to do this. All the terrorists are going to get this. One's going to get you. The drug dealer's going to get. Everybody's going to get you. And that fear, if you let it in, will lead you to do really stupid things and allow people to do really stupid and evil things to you if you let that crap in. And again, you don't have any concept of history, because guys, turn on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, whatever. This show, the names and the dates have been changed, but the story's the same and has been the same for hundreds of years. I'm trying not to get off on a tangent here, but we have to get rid of this fear. And like you said, you're sitting staring at a windshield 11 hours a day. Turn off talk radio and turn on a book. Turn on a podcast and learn something. Turn off the news, for God's sake, whatever you do. Stop watching that garbage and learn something. There's just literal hundreds of thousands of books of information available to you, and somebody will read them to you. And go learn about having a good attitude. Go listen to some Jordan Peterson podcasts. They're free. You don't even have to pay for them. There's just too much. There's too much good information out there that can make your life better and improve your situation than, filling up all your time with sports and political talk radio. Because it turns your brain into mush.
Well, I lost my train of thought. Well, you were talking about, before we got on the air, about kind of tying this into the government kind of.
Oh, Small Business Saturday.
Yeah, squashing small business or trying to artificially promote it while at the same time killing it on the backside. So
yeah, I've seen this the last few years. My niece runs a a little restaurant. Started out as a cookie shop. It's amazing cookies. And now they've kind of turned it into a little cafe. It's a little tiny place and make amazing food. And a friend of mine runs a barbecue restaurant, and I saw all today and yesterday with Black Friday coming. I see all this stuff about Small Business Saturday. We're going to support small business. We're not going to support Walmart and Amazon and all these big companies. We're going to support small business. And while I appreciate that, because there are some great small businesses that could probably, you might be better off to go get your car worked on at Joe's auto shop than to go to some name brand place. You probably are better off, But what really bothers me about this Small Business Saturday is a lot of the same people who are virtue signaling on social media. I support small business. Are the same people that will absolutely, without question, support the regulations that destroy small business and do it for the benefit of giant corporations. And they don't even think about it because, hey, the government said we have to pass this law to make us safe. So absolutely, we need to be safe. But who do you think benefited from the electronic log mandate? It wasn't small business. Who do you think benefits from California Bill AB 5? It's not small business. Who do you think benefits from all these labor regulations? It's not small business. Who do you think benefits from environmental regulations like EPA 2010? Where, now think about this, y'all. 85% of the carriers, the trucking companies in America have less than 6 trucks. 85% of them. Okay? That means, using the superpower of common sense and basic third grade math, that 15% of the trucking companies and carriers in the United States have more than 6 trucks. Well, when they put in these environmental regulations that we're told is all about saving the planet, well, who do you think is going to weather that storm better? A company like us that has 5 trucks, or a company like Schneider or Swift that if the load breaks down because the truck won't run, they've got another truck. They'll just stick another truck on it, and the customer will never know the difference because they couldn't care less. They just know an orange or a white truck's coming. Yet we pass these regulations because we are constantly terrorized with this bullshit propaganda that if we don't pass X regulation, this terrible, terrible thing is going to happen. Yet all they're doing is creating an environment where giant corporations are able to literally get away with murder while guys like us are starved out. And so, we buy the trucks that we buy, obviously, because of their price point. That's a big, huge part of it. We can get a truck for $10,000 to $15,000. But we also buy these trucks because they're not compliant with EPA 2010. We nullified that regulation. Go look up Thomas Jefferson, nullification, Principles of 98. We nullified federal regulations in our company. We said, no, we're not doing it. We have one truck that we got that has that stuff on it, and we won't buy another one. But if you're going to virtue signal about how much you love small business, then stop letting professional liars screw us out of our way of making a living, because that's what's happening.
Well, and also educate yourself because, sometimes things are packaged very, very, sneakily. Let me give an example. There was a referendum in Kentucky on the last election. Everybody's, well, let me back up. There's plenty of money collected in fuel taxes for the highway system. Mm-hmm. It's just redirected. It's not spent there. So the government's way of fixing that is not to correct the redirection, but let's just tax and get more money. Okay. Right. So the argument, the debate was whether to do it via tolling or via a tax increase. Well, that word tax increase, the government realizes that that's a hot button issue, and that, they can present it that way, and the majority of people will reject a tax increase and opt for the tolling option, when in fact the tolling option will actually cost the people more money than the tax increase because of the lack of efficiency in the tolling process. They'd have to toll, I forget now how many cents per person to make the same money up that they could raise by only increasing the fuel tax 1 cent, But because it was framed under the guise of a tax increase, all the hue and cry from the uneducated public was that, oh, hell no, we don't want another tax increase. So they opt for the tolling, which is going to cost a hell of a lot more money. And now we have that bridge that goes across the river from Louisville to Indianapolis now, or Indiana, that everybody has to pay for, um, and that would have been so much cheaper for people just to accept a 1 penny per gallon tax increase. But again, the government understands how the slaves think, and so they use that to manipulate, the effect of that debate. Now an educated, public would, and there's no one more educated about fuel tax than truck drivers. As dumb as most of them are, at least the industry understands that would have been. We were willing. The trucking industry was saying no, raise the fuel tax, which should have been a red flag for somebody. That if we're asking you to increase our taxes, there must be a benefit to that versus the alternative.
Right.
But nobody caught that. The general public, the general voter.
And they know damn well that nobody's going to expect them to say, stop stealing the money.
Well, that wasn't an option. There wasn't a plan C. It was either let's collect it this way or this way, But you're right. And just another example, though, of how, we can package things. And there's so much bias already in the electorate that we don't even, people vote for things they don't even realize what they're voting for, because of these little hot button issues or these little key words that are used in there, and they don't go to the trouble to educate themselves, and they're probably voting for exactly opposite of what they really feel, but they don't know it because they don't take the time to educate themselves.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to watch with the political class and how people respond to them is if Team A has some turd that they want to pass, they'll tie it to a teacher's raise.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if Team B they want to kill some other thing, they'll do the same thing. They'll
put something that they know no one will vote.
They'll say, well, we're going to put an amendment that says it's going to cut the troops' pay. And of course, what's the headline? The headline doesn't say gang of thugs and bunch of narcissistic sociopaths are playing games with you. It's whatever that inflammatory thing was.
Right.
That's all they talk about, because the more distracted you are, the better. It's actually kind of funny. It's at least once you understand it, for at least its entertainment value. But it's, and I can't be swayed by that crap anymore, because I know if their lips are moving, they're lying. So why should I pretend like, they're telling me the truth when I know they're not telling me the truth? But again, circle right back around. If you had a basic fundamental understanding of history, finance, and economics, you couldn't get lied to so easily. Because there was this fundamental shift, and I'm going to put a link in the show notes to this, because it happened by accident. But it's on YouTube, it's on iTunes. I'll put links down. But there's a guy named Dr. Thomas E. Woods, and he has this lecture series. I think there are 15 lectures, and it's about a book that he wrote called The Politically Incorrect Guide to American History. It's fantastic. And what he does is he takes a very, I'm going to use the word dispassionate, walk through colonial American history, and talks about the founding and the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, and he walks you through this in a way that is not, nobody's screaming at you. Nobody's trying to really tie things that happened into things that are happening now. It was just a very interesting, here's a professor with this giant brain, That's walking you through this process. And the first thing that struck me about it when I first encountered this 7 or 8 years ago was, what, is this really true? And so, thankful for the internet, I was able to look it up and verify it. And it was all true. And I was left with this, it was an anger. And I thought, I went to 12 years of formal education, and I had heard about maybe 10% of this stuff. I knew who George Washington was. I knew who Thomas Jefferson was. I knew who Abraham Lincoln was. But I had been introduced to about 10% of the of the subject matter that he covers in this book, in this lecture series. And that began a shift in me and how I looked at things, because I found this at the changing of the guard. I found this in 2008. One presidential administration is ending, another one is about to begin. And just by total accident, I find this. And I started really thinking about and considering the principles of history, the principles of economics, and the principles of freedom. And it broke something in me, because I no longer had to filter whatever information that I saw through my team glasses. I took my team glasses off and I threw them away. And so there's so much wonderful information out there available to us right now. It's life-changing. It changed my life in so many different ways. And I just can't help but think, how would my life have been different had I been exposed to these principles that have been around literally since the 1600s? Well, what if I had been exposed to those at 10 years old instead of 30 years old? How would my life be different? And I can't help but draw the conclusion that yes, my life would have been different, because I would have had a different foundation from which to draw my own conclusions about things, rather than the twisted up garbage that I was taught in my schools, I was taught in my home, I was taught in my church. I just got to believe life would have been different if I would have had the opportunity to learn a lot of this stuff. And, and it doesn't matter if you really talking about politics. I'm not worried about, but history is something that we need to understand, how things really happened over the last couple hundred years. And because we can relate that stuff to today. And it's just so sad that we've been brainwashed for so long, and led astray from common sense stuff. I mean, I'm talking third grade math. It's not hard to figure out. But yet they have, the political class in America and people that in established firms have figured out how to twist some very, very simple things just so we'll be compliant. Just shut up, slave. Do what you're told. Pull the lever. Just pull the lever. That's all you got to do. Just pull the lever, push the button. Just don't think, don't question, do what you're told. Shut up and do what you're told, and we'll take care of you. So I digress.
Well, getting back to what I was talking about, to maybe try to wrap up. I'm not opposed to people trying to obviously do better for themselves and for their family. And if you're a company driver becoming an owner operator is certainly an option. It's not for everybody.
No.
many people go from company driver to lease operator, owner operator, and they end up making less money than they did as a company driver. And they have all the risk and here's the big thing. As a company driver, the worst thing that happens to you is you get fired. And you get a job tomorrow morning because, well, I'm looking at an ad right now on Facebook for a guy as a felon, been out 5 years, and there's no less than about 50 people jumping on wanting to hire him right now. So if a felon that's been out of prison for 5 years can get a job, you as a company driver that gets fired for running a red light, I'm sure can get a job tomorrow. So
Do you remember that guy that called into Kevin's show that had been in prison and talked about he teamed with his
yeah,
wife and they
yeah, yeah,
bought a truck and paid
yeah,
it off and
yeah.
out man,
Big
I was
success
so
story. Yeah,
yeah, he in what 20 years or something he was
yeah,
locked up,
yeah,
long time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah. I do
incredible.
remember that.
Well, and because there's a if okay, let's say let's say you were where I was, you broke, desperate, and stupid, and I was making 700 a week, maybe you're making 1,000 now. I mean, we can both say that there's some people that should not try this. Whether it is um, an aptitude issue, of basic, I don't know, intelligence. I don't know a better way to say it, but just not everybody is going to be able to do this.
Well, you got to quit thinking of it as I use. Let me give you an analogy. When I was in high school, um, the expectation for me to go to college was just there. So it wasn't I didn't, it never was, I didn't sit down and go, okay, I've got to decide what I'm going to do after I graduate high school. I mean, it was already sort of expected. So I always refer to that as I went on to grade 13. It just was the next thing.
Hmm.
And let me bring that to driving. If you're a company driver, becoming an owner operator shouldn't be thought of as just grade 13.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You're not moving from one position in the company to a different position. And a lot of people don't get this part of it. Right now, your decisions are how fast to go, how wide to take that turn. When am I going to brake tonight? Where am I going to park? What I got to do to trip plan to get this there tomorrow? Those are the decisions you deal with as a company driver. Tomorrow, when you become an owner operator, I got a whole list of things here we just talked about that now you have to decide. Now you decide what tires you're going to buy, where you're going to buy fuel. You know, you're going to choose loads. You're going to decide whether to pay the IRS on time or not. You're going to decide whether to pay taxes, on your income weekly or not. I mean, all these decisions that you don't even think about are going to be your responsibility tomorrow. And oh, by the way, now you're financially responsible. So
Hmm.
the worst that happened to you as a company driver is you got fired. Okay. The worst that happens to you as an owner operator is you lose your truck and you go bankrupt and you lose your credit and you
Hmm.
could potentially lose your family over this. Okay. So the I mean, the skin in the game is significantly more. The investment is significantly more. The pressure on you because of that is significantly more. So don't think of it as grade 13. Think of it as I've got to decide whether I'm going to take $150,000 out of my pocket and go down the street here and open up some kind of a store. Okay, I'm going to go in some kind of a business tomorrow to the
Hmm.
tune of 150 grand. Okay, so to get away from the driving part of it, because that's not what this job. You think that's what the job's going to be when you become an owner operator, but it's not. Driving, as you will know now, is less than 10% of what you do as an owner operator. So your life today is 10% of what your life's going to be tomorrow when you become an owner operator.
Right.
And most people just don't think about that. And
Yeah.
that's why they failed because I was really good at doing all those other things. Now all those other things don't matter. They don't make me any money now. I've got to know a whole lot of other things and be pretty good at doing those other things. And oh, by the way, I've got to make a lot of money if I didn't have any money to start with, because this truck could break next week. And then what am I going to do then? You know.
Yeah.
So it most people aren't ready for it. I mean, most people who are driving a truck as a company driver, let's face it, they're not usually financially in a position to do these things. Now, it doesn't mean they can't get that way, but you have to make this decision to be an owner operator, and then you have to stay where you are, improve get the best job with the best company, making the best money you can possibly make. Get your personal finances in order. Go through Dave Ramsey's course. Get your home life squared away, so that you could. If you're not saving money now, there's no way you're going to save money as an owner operator. Zero chance.
Right.
So get to where you're saving money in your current situation. Save up the money. Get $20,000, $30,000 in the bank. And while you're doing that, educate yourself on all these things. Talk to other people. I hesitate saying that because I'm looking right now at a Facebook post, and it says, and I quote, "Company driver look," and this is on Facebook, okay? "Company driver looking to go owner operator. How do you go about doing that? Step by step. Any tips or what to look out for? A lot of company drivers say it's not worth it. Any and all information is helpful. Thank you." Now, if you're going on Facebook and posting this, and this is how you're going to get your information, believe me, please save your money and your effort, and just stay where you are. Okay.
Right.
This is not where I'm talking about getting the information. This is not how I'm talking about educating yourself. Okay. Um, but if you're willing to do that, the one thing you said, okay, is the aptitude. What I would say is, if you aren't willing, okay, to self-identify your shortcomings, if you're not willing to take the measures necessary to improve in the areas that you're going to need to become a business person, then you don't need to do this. Now, if
Right.
you're willing to do that, okay, and you're willing to honestly take a look at yourself and go, wait a minute, I'm not saving any money. I don't know anything. I know zero about accounting. I know zero about all this other stuff. And you're not willing to take the steps necessary to gain that knowledge, don't do it. This is not, you're going to be a company driver again. I promise you. And now you're going to be a company driver with bad credit and no money and a bankruptcy and a repossession and all these other things that are going to take you years to get out from under. Okay?
Yeah.
Save yourself that trouble and just stay a company driver, because it's not the skill set that you need to be in business and be successful in business. And we're not even talking about in a challenging environment like today. Now, had this been last year, I don't know, he probably could have fell into this and done okay for a year, until this year hit, and then reality comes back, which is why we have 640 trucking companies out of business right now. Okay?
Yeah.
Businesses couldn't make it. What do you think about an individual with no business background is going to do? If 640 established trucking companies, some of them have been in business years, can't make it right now, and you're going to roll in here with zero experience and zero aptitude and zero willingness to learn, and you think you're going to make it? Okay. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like you said, stay a company driver. Okay. And I think that's what I'm trying to. There are ways to make yourself more valuable, and it might not be at the carrier that you're currently driving for. So, what I'd like to propose is a different fork in the road. Instead of, well, I can stay at the carrier I'm at, making what I'm making, or I can go lease a truck. Well, why not try to find a way to make yourself more valuable, learn how to do something different, pull a tanker, go do flatbed and learn how to do oversize and heavy haul. There are ways to make yourself more valuable with a different skill set, maybe learning how to operate heavy equipment, and then you can use your CDL, there to now you've got two sets of qualifications. I'm a heavy equipment operator and I'm a truck driver. If you if you listen to everything that's been said here and you think, okay, well, at least now I understand that there's a lot more to this than just changing my title from company driver to lease operator, and maybe I don't want to do this now. Well, there are still ways to find another niche in the industry, but I'm not going to hate on Schneider, Swift, or JB or whoever. They serve a purpose, and they're doing that. But you just got to understand there's a ceiling there. There's only so much money you're ever going to make at one of those companies. And so if you are at one of those companies and you're bumping into that ceiling, well, maybe you need to look around your hometown, or maybe you need to look at moving to a different hometown and finding a different application to do as a company driver to increase your income. And then, that's what I didn't do. That's probably the big mistake that I made. I just looked around and said, well, all I'm ever going to do is $700 a week. So I took my grade 13. Like I said, my next step was huge. Instead of trying to find a way to make myself more valuable, learn something different, and do that inside the industry to increase my income.
You also thought, and a lot of people do, that for you to attain your goals in this industry, it required you having that title owner operator.
Mm-hmm.
100%. In your mind, that's what you thought the path had to be.
Yep.
Now, what's your title right this minute in the industry?
Right now?
Company driver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What have you shared your income with our audience?
I think so. I mean, I don't think I'm quite going to hit 100 this year. I'm going to come really, really, really close.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm way over 96,000.
Okay.
For the year.
Would most people think that a company driver with zero financial risk make $100,000 a year? Do you think that? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that if your reason for doing this is money, okay, you don't have to be an owner operator to make really good money. If $100,000 is attractive to you, there are ways to make $100,000 as a company driver. Okay, you just got to find the right company. And by the way, it's not one of the big boys. Okay,
right.
So that could also be an option for you. And you'll go back and look at our episode on trucking and becoming wealthy. At $100,000, if you can't save money at that level, then you've got other issues that you need to be working on at the same time, which will be a problem for you if you became an owner operator anyway.
Right.
So, in $100,000, you put enough money away that either you become wealthy, or you can certainly save up enough money to not make all these mistakes that other people decide when you decide to become an owner operator. And oh, by the way, we can teach you how to do it and do it right. So, there are lots of options here besides you taking the plunge into something you're ill prepared for and then paying the consequences for it. We talked about how this is such an easy business to get into,
Mm-hmm.
and have the potential to make this kind of money. It's also a very easy business to jump into and lose everything, because there's not anybody going to tell you not to do it. The company you work for is going to gladly lease you a brand new truck, And in today's environment, most finance companies are going to gladly finance you at some interest rate, 16, 18%, But if you're willing to do that, they're willing to take the chance on you, That doesn't mean because they're going to do it that's something you should do. That's not a tacit approval. That's just like, hey, we're going to make a lot of money off this clown, and if he fails, we're just going to get the truck back and make it again.
Well, I just thought, something that, talk about my personal information, and it just hit me when I talked about that $700 a week take home pay, back in the day, and I had to get away from that. The debt payments that I'm paying right now are almost equal, from the mess that I made. I'm paying almost as much in debt payments to the IRS and, you know, um, as what my net income was back then. So if I wouldn't make $100,000, we'd be living in a van down by the river, you know, um, because I fended it off as long as I could, and thank God I ran into you and was able to get this opportunity, because when all that stuff come home to roost, if I wouldn't have had this income, I'd have been in big trouble, big trouble, and
So,
I set my kids down today. We had a little come to Jesus meeting, and I said, guys, listen, here's the thing. We homeschool, so I said, listen, I could tell you, for example, 100 times, don't touch the hot stove, but you're really not going to get it until you've touched that hot stove one time. Experience is such a good teacher. And I said, so I have this dilemma as a parent. I don't want you to suffer the things that I've suffered. I don't want you to experience the pain and the stress and the heartache that I've experienced. And so I have to teach you things, but there's also sometimes I have to kind of give you enough rope to hang yourself, because you're going to do something stupid. You are going to make incredibly stupid decisions at some point. Okay. My challenge is that I have to give you enough training and education to limit your stupidity, within a reasonable bounds, because you're going to make a dumb decision at some point. The experience that I've had in the last decade has been invaluable. It's been irreplaceable. I still wished I could have done it another way. But I do believe that there's a way to use your experience in business and my experience in life and business to lay out a plan for people to follow and say, okay, we'll go through these steps and you can avoid the pain and the heartache and the stress and the chaos and just, hell on earth, because I've lived it, y'all, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But sometimes there's an old Jeff Foxworthy joke. Sometimes you got to pull that TV off on top of your head for you to get the lesson. And I'd prefer you not have to do it that way, because it sucks. It sucks. And it's just not a good way to go about things.
well, I hear what you're saying, but in the long run, if we can avoid, you know, if we can keep them from dying in a DUI accident driving a car, but yet let them have a fender bender, and hopefully that suffices.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're trying to do here. Trying to avoid, these are serious consequences. You do this and you screw up, and you lose the truck and your credit and your bankruptcy. That takes a long time to fix. And usually the little lady you convinced to marry you is now going to question your judgment to the point where she may not decide to hang with you anymore, because you do stupid shit. So, there's such a price you will pay for this mistake that I cringe to think about how just casual people make this decision. And it always ends up, I mean, the ones that live through, there are a few, but listen, the majority of people do not, And I mean, the failure rate, and this has been a couple of years since I've looked into this, but at one time when I started doing this, the failure rate for first time owner operators was 9.5 out of 10. Okay. 95% failed first time. 95%. Yet they do it every day but again, it sometimes it's at the urging of the company they're driving for. I know some of these companies that in orientation, they try to talk the drivers into going lease purchase at orientation. Big companies that you would recognize,
Yeah.
Part of orientation is walking you through the lot and tempting you with a truck. You should do it this way. That just blows me away. That's not a vocational choice. Okay, you don't go and decide to be a company driver and owner operator as a vocational choice. One of those is being an employee. One of them is being a business owner. Those two are so far apart from each other that how you can, in good conscience, ask somebody who's coming into the industry for the first time, which way do you want to go? That's just criminal. That is absolutely criminal. You know.
Yeah.
Good news is, we're going to continue to put this message out. You don't know this. I spent all weekend working on my book. I'm going to probably go into seclusion in the month of January to get this book done. Well, I'm actually writing a book on
Okay.
my experiences and how not to do this. We're going to give you a step-by-step way of doing this the right way. And we're even going to go through a section where if you've already done it wrong, we're going to try to help you straighten it back out again. But again, you know, we're not trying to keep people from doing it. We're just trying to keep you from doing it the wrong way. And if you listen to this and you build up a trust with us, you'll understand that we don't do it normal. We're not normal. When you do this, if you talk to 9 other people who just went into business for themselves, they're going to not be doing it the way you're doing it. Okay? But at the end of the day, you'll be the one that's surviving and thriving, and they'll be back as company drivers. I promise you. So
Yeah.
that's just the way that, I mean, the one thing that, I mean, I'm taking all of my 40 plus years of experience in other industries and applying it to this industry, which is the most screwed up thing I've ever seen. But it take trucking out of it completely. Only good thing about this business is you can get into it for relatively nothing, and the
Mm-hmm.
and the upside is incredible.
Yeah.
Any other business I've been associated with, the upside is not near as lucrative with as little experience and as little upfront investment to get into it. This is a
Yeah. It's
golden
absolutely.
opportunity if you have the right mindset, if you're willing to be a service oriented person and you're willing to understand what it takes to become a successful business. If you're willing to do that, your potential here is unlimited, even in this climate, even with AB5, even with electric trucks. None of that changes.
Mm.
Nothing changes there. We can teach you the principles that work in any situation.
Yeah.
And as this industry changes, we'll just embrace that change. Our principles will still work. We'll be replacing our '07s and '05s and '04s and '06s down the road with electric trucks. Okay? But we won't be buying them new. All right? We'll be buying them 4 or 5 years old. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to go. We're going to lower our cost. We're going to increase our revenue. That's the bottom line. That's all that
Yeah.
matters. That's how it works. We'll just teach you how to do that. Oh, and by the way, we're adding 4 or 5 trucks in 2020. We're lining up driver candidates for those right now. If you want to come on board and learn how to do this and do it firsthand, drive one of our trucks for a couple of years, let us mentor you and teach you how to do this. We'd love to talk to you. Okay?
www.blueribbonlogistics.com/drive for us. Did I do that right? I think I just gave the.
We
I think I just gave
I
the
think
wrong
I think we don't.
address.
We actually have a driveforblueribbon.com, don't we? Don't we
No.
have a URL driveforblueribbon.com? I just paid for one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to your web developer because
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
do.
sure.
He's he
I'm
he's
not sure.
shady. He's
I'm
shady.
not sure. I'm not sure that I set that up. Um, well, if you go to blueribbonlogistics.com, you can click on a tab that says "Drive for Us,"
Yeah.
and
Or
uh,
just email us,
oh, it
get us
does
on
say,
Facebook, call us, whatever you want to do.
yeah. But all the information is there on the website, blueribbonlogistics.com. It is drive hyphen forward hyphen us. Um, but there's a form there. You can fill out some information. That'll give us a way to contact you, and we'll do if you meet the qualifications, we can do an interview with you, talk about where you want to be and how you want to get there. Send us an email, Chris at blueribbonlogistics.com, Larry at blueribbonlogistics.com. We have a hotline that I can't remember the phone number for right now, and I've got it on a piece of paper.
Well,
laying around this.
let me say this. You know, we are seriously looking for people, but understand something. We can't accommodate you in a desperate situation. Okay,
That's true.
we are kind of long range planning situation here because we're having to actually acquire the trucks and go through our our renovation process with them, and so we're looking for drivers who are in a good situation but they just want to take advantage of this kind of opportunity. So, if you're looking for something right away, we'll help you. We'll try to help you with something, but we don't have that kind of opportunity typically. Typically,
Right.
our opportunity is something that we plan for down the road. Like right now, we're working on, I think, end of January, February is
Hmm.
our next new hire.
Yeah.
And so then as we find and buy these trucks and put them on, which is our goal is to have at least 5 more next year. We're a little ahead of goal this year, so we might actually be more than that, or it might be quicker than we thought. But anyway, get lined up. We it's a process. We want to make sure that you're the right fit for us, and we're the right fit for you, and so that does take a little time. We build a little relationship and a little rapport in the process. But anyway, we'll be glad to help you.
And I'm going to throw this out there for this. This episode's being recorded in November of 2019. So if you're listening to this and it's like 2025, this probably won't apply. But we are looking for a truck right now, a 2005 to 2007 Freightliner that needs a motor because we have a motor. We have a really good motor, but we need a truck with a blown up engine. So if you see that
That
around,
otherwise is in good shape.
yeah, it's otherwise in good shape, but just has a bad motor. We have a motor that we could put in a truck. So shoot me an email if you see that truck or have that truck because we could use one because we got a great motor. We just need a truck to put it in. I found the hotline number. It's 413-248-7825, 413-24 truck. You can leave a voicemail there. Ask your
I've got
questions. Go
I've
ahead.
got one last point, and I
Okay.
don't even know if this may be news to you, but I've thought about our audience here and how relatively few people that we can actually bring on as driver employee drivers for us.
Hmm.
And so well, over the holidays, I'm going to give this a lot more thought, but I'm thinking that we might have go ahead and launch our mentoring and coaching program so that we can do what we do for the people that work for us,
Hmm.
but in their present situation. So,
Okay.
so we can, if you're a company driver for somebody else, we can't really affect your income that much, but we can give you this education we're talking about. You
Right.
know, we
Yeah.
can maybe coach you into getting into a better job. We might be able to use some connections and help you find a better company job. But at the very minimum, if you're somewhat happy with where you are, but you just want to learn how to do all this,
Hmm.
I think we're going to take on a certain number of clientele as a consultant or a mentoring or a teaching coaching group where we would have a regular contact with you and give you some direct phone number access and start working with other people besides just the guys that are working for us. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just
It's a great
throwing
idea.
that out there. So because I think we could help a lot more people that way. Because we're limited to how many people that can actually work for us.
Yeah.
Obviously, if that were the case, those people would then be at the top of the list as we continue to grow and as trucks come open.
Yeah.
So so we're going to kick that around, but we'll welcome your feedback about that too. If that's something that you guys have an interest in, let us know. If we can
Yeah.
get 10 or 20 people lined up right away to want to do it, we might launch it quicker than than I thought. We're kind of using the March Louisville Truck Show as a kickoff for a lot of our new stuff this year. So, but like I say, if we get enough people that want to do this, I'm probably okay with trying to do it sooner than later. So, especially since
Yeah.
I'm not driving now. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got for this episode. Everybody be safe, be happy, and we'll talk to you next time.